So our third and final honoree is someone everyone I think is pretty familiar with, Senator John Glenn, who is sorry he couldn't be with us here today. So he has sent a wonderful representative, and that is NASA Administrator Charlie Bolden. I wanted to introduce him briefly before we ask Bill Hunter to come up and introduce the senator. Administrator Bolden is the 12th administrator of National Aeronautic and Space Administration, NASA. He began his duties as head of the agency in July of 2009. And he leads, as administrator, leads the nationwide NASA team to advance the mission and goals of the U.S. space program. His 34-year career in the Marine Corps also included 14 years as a member of NASA's astronaut office. He traveled to orbit 4 times aboard the space shuttle and commanded 2 of those missions and piloting 2 others. He was a naval aviator and in that capacity flew more than 100 combat missions in North and South Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, while he was stationed in Thailand in the 70s. In addition, he served as commanding general of the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force forward in support of Operation Desert Thunder in Kuwait. He was deputy commander of the U.S. forces in Japan as well. Bolden's many military decorations include the Defense Superior Service Medal, the Distinguished Flying Cross, and he was inducted into the U.S. Astronaut Hall of Fame in May 2006. But now I'd like to call forward a good friend of Senator Glenn, Bill Hunter. Bill?
Thank you. It's quite an honor. Jimmy, quite an honor for all of you. Sophia, I almost came to tears when I heard the Greek national anthem in this room. I'm telling you, it was very moving. This room, you may or may not know, is truly the Senate Armed Services Committee conference room. The tables that you probably saw outside are located in this room, and all the senators in the Senate Armed Services Committee deal with national defense issues forever and ever. And I think this song today was the first time ever sung in this room. And it's a real honor to have Zito Ilada. John Glenn, I'm honored and privileged to introduce you a recipient of today's Orchidea Greatest Generation Award. With his many, many medals and awards and citations and accomplishments he's received, I'll only try to attempt to briefly talk about a few. Following Pearl Harbor, John Glenn left college and immediately joined the U.S. Navy aviation program. In the program, they sent him to Kansas in 1941. This picture here of John Glenn is the picture that was taken to him in 1941 when he was in Kansas. Later, he transferred to the Marine Corps Flight Training Program, and he was commissioned in the Marine Corps in 1943. John Glenn flew 59 combat missions in the South Pacific. He was assigned to the Marshall Islands, and he flew his combat missions in the South Pacific throughout. In the Korean conflict, he flew 63 combat missions. He was awarded Distinguished Flying Cross 6 times. In 1959, he was selected to be one of the 7 NASA Mercury astronauts from a pool of 508 applicants. And on February 20th, 1962, some of us remember 1962, he made history as the first American to orbit the Earth 3 times in a very, very small Mercury spacecraft. That spacecraft still resides at NASA Museum in one of the entrances to the museum. He returned home to a major hero's welcome after that flight, and then President John F. Kennedy, who started the concept of I want a man on the moon in 10 years, in $10 million, I guess he said. And John Glenn followed up and made it happen. In 1964, John Glenn retired from the Marine Corps. He then became a very successful businessman. He was CEO of a major corporation, worldwide corporation, And at the same time, in Ohio, he was actively engaged in the Democrat Party in Ohio. And by the way, he still is very active in the Democrat Party in Ohio. In 1974, he was elected to the U.S. Senate, and he had a great reputation of getting things done in the Senate. He was very active in supporting Greece and Cyprus issues. By the way, he also became an honorary member of AHEPA, which is kind of interesting. From October 29 to November 7th, that's 8 days, Senator Glenn, at the age of 77 years old, returned to space as a member of NASA's Discovery mission STS-95. My wife Rula and I were delighted to be invited by Senator Glenn to witness this historic event in Cape Canaveral. Later on, Senator Glenn retired from the Senate in 1998. And you know, at age 77, one says, you know, that's enough, let's retire, let's take it easy, let's enjoy life. What did Senator Glenn say? Oihe. Oihe. Why? Because he believes in the value of the youth of this nation and the only way he could deliver value to the youth of this nation was through education. So in 1998, Ohio State University announced the establishment of the John Glenn Institute for Public Policy. And this year, in April of this year, the Glenn Institute became a college within the University of Ohio State University system. And he is ecstatic about that. When he's in Columbus, and unfortunately he's there today, but not being able to be here, he continues to visit his office in the university almost on a daily basis. We are next-door neighbors of the Glens for the past 25 years here in Bethesda. First, I'd like to salute the great lady in his life, Annie Glenn. Annie Glenn is a true hero because she combated this major stuttering issue that she had for many years. As a child, she stuttered. In fact, she applied for a job, she was interviewed for the job, and the person was saying, "What's your name and why are you here? And give me your qualifications." And she was writing it down and passing it to the person who was interviewing her. It was a bad situation for her. A lot of people made fun of her when she was in school, et cetera, et cetera. But you know, she finally conquered this issue through great determination and hard work. They've been married over 70 years. They have a son, David, and his wife, Karen, and 2 children live in Berkeley, California, and his daughter lives in Minnesota. About 6 years ago, they launched a major road trip from D.C. to L.A., and they visited many state parks along the way. They've also traveled all over the world, and one of their favorite spots is Elunda in Crete. Last year, he bought a new car, and he was driving us to dinner. And as he's driving, he's so proud of this new car. He says, imagine, he says, the technology and the bells and whistles I have in this car is considerably a lot more than I had in the Mercury spacecraft when he accomplished his 3 orbits around the Earth. Today, at age 93, and Annie 95, they continue to be very active. I can attest that John and Annie always treat others with deep humility, integrity, and respect. Both John and Annie are the most down-to-earth people you ever want to meet. We continually enjoy their company over our Greek holidays, especially Christmas, New Year's, and Easter. They love the Greek traditions, and they love Greek food, especially baklava and evgalemonu soup. The sights and sounds of them bantering and joking with each other, playfully finishing each other's sentences, makes us feel thankful to be in the same room with them. We are very proud to call Senator Glenn and Annie our dearest friends. And I know today that along with his fellow World War II veterans, Senator Glenn is truly honored to receive the Okie Day Greatest Generation Award. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all very much for the privilege, actually, of stepping in on behalf of the legendary John Glenn. John and Annie, I echo everything that has been said. I called them to wish them happy anniversary not long ago. I think it was their 75th, actually. And Annie said, "Charlie, you know what? I think it's going to last." I went, I'm extremely pleased and honored that Senator Glenn asked me to accept the Okie Award representing the Greek people's answer of no to fascism on his behalf. Senator Glenn asked that I read his letter of appreciation to the Washington Okie Day Foundation. Being a good Marine who likes to follow orders, I would now like to share his letter with all of you present. It's to Mr. Andrew Manatos, President, Mr. Mike Manatos, Executive Director, Washington Okie Day Foundation. Dear Andy and Mike, thank you for honoring me this year with the Washington Okie Day Foundation's Greatest Generation Award. I am proud to receive it along with a Greek and Greek-American World War II veteran. And I wish I could be with my good friends Rula and Bill Hunter and all of you, and he thought we would be outside, at the beautiful World War II Memorial. I appreciate my good friend and NASA Administrator Charlie Bolden accepting it on my behalf. Further, I'm honored to join my colleagues and fellow veterans who have been previously recipients of this award. Former Senate Majority Leader and Presidential nominee Bob Dole, former Chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee Ben Gilman, the longest-serving member of the U.S. House of Representatives John Dingell, and the oldest member of the House, Ralph Hall. It behooves us all to remember the war that stopped Adolf Hitler's nearly successful attempt at world domination and the extermination of millions of people. It is helpful, particularly during this time of Great Depression in Greece, that we remind the world of the great sacrifices the Greek people have made, as they said no, or ohi, to surrender and became the first to defeat an Axis forces invasion. They moved U.S. President Franklin Roosevelt to say, and I quote, "When the entire world had lost all hope, the Greek people dared to question the invincibility of the German monster, raising against it the proud spirit of freedom," unquote. I accept this award today on behalf of all Americans who did their part to save democracy and freedom for our world. Thank you. Sincerely, John Glenn. John Glenn has always said yes. Yes to his country's call in the Marines. Yes to being the first American to orbit Earth as one of the Mercury 7. Yes to his state's nomination to serve in the Senate. And yes to the ongoing call of his nation. This great public servant, John Glenn, has exemplified the greatest generation, not online in headlines, but in his actions, in his public and private life. As the current head of NASA, I can say unequivocally, that we are standing on John Glenn's shoulders as we pursue a journey to Mars, a journey that would not be possible without his selfless and pioneering spirit. As the first American to orbit Earth, John Glenn inspired generations to follow in his footsteps, myself included, and he is a true American hero. Even in his 70s, he continued to break barriers as he took to space again in the space shuttle. Since that time, John Glenn has continued to exemplify American ideals and is the true measure of a public treasure. On behalf of Senator John Glenn, thank you again to the Okie Day Foundation for this recognition. I know that Senator Glenn will be as proud to receive it as I am to receive it on his behalf. Thank you all.